We will open the commission meeting with the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Chaplain Pete Mayo will give the invocation this evening.
Thank you very much. I invite you to pray along with me. Blessed are you, eternal source of life within us. Help and bless us this evening. May your thoughts be our thoughts and your words our words. Assist us in community building and kindness sharing. We thank you for our city, our elected representatives, the businesses, the churches, the families, and the individuals that make our city the great place that it is. We pray that we will have a productive meeting today, that we will be able to discuss and tackle the important things we need to tackle and be efficient in handling those things. Please bless and protect our little corner of the world, as well as the world itself. We pray in the name of all that each of us holds sacred and holy. Amen. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Pete. Thank you, Pete. We'll open the public input. Just a cautionary note, public input is usually 5 minutes, give or take here and there. Please, no lengthy soliloquies. We can discuss more at the end of the meeting. Public input is now open.
Right. Hello, I'm Jenna Vitt, and I'm here to address the 69 corridor,
Could you please share your address?
421 South 190th Street, Pittsburgh.
Thank you.
I want to state that I'm for using the existing 69 highway, the middle route, and I'm against the proposed western alignment. My purpose for being here tonight is to ask you to rescind your approval for the westward expansion. The current proposal is $400 million. This, of course, does not include home buyouts, land, farmland, business buyouts, etc. When you talk to most people and ask if they've heard about it recently, they say, oh yeah, that's been talked about for years but will never happen. And then they brush it under the rug. People are uninformed and unaware of the current happenings on where KDOT is at with this process. Therefore, it's been brushed aside as it has for 20 plus years. But in reality, the plans are to get it moving, and people are not aware. In 1999, the consensus was using the existing corridor to go down the middle. And then in 2000, 2001, support eroded from that, and they decided to do the western corridor. And according to the Highway 69 Association and KDOT, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's been the idea since then, the western corridor. However, at a Crawford County Commission meeting on June 16th, 2020, Mr. Johnson stated that he attended a Zoom meeting where KDOT said they would not fund the Highway 69 bypass for over $300 million. And added that they may be able to fund smaller projects to fund improvements to the current bypass and expand it. So with that said, in or after that time frame, if someone heard about the 69 bypass and saw it or heard that, they would be under the impression that the western corridor would not happen. Therefore, people have built homes along that route. 2 cul-de-sacs, as I would call it, have been built in the Capaldo area alone. Not to mention all the homes, some big homes, along 200th Street. Until about a month ago, most people had no idea the western bypass was resurrected due to funding that had to be spent. It would be fiscally irresponsible to spend tax money to expand 69 Highway westward when the current existing middle route could be expanded. If you look at the south 8 miles of 69 Highway, it looks like it was intentionally built for that, to be expanded. Like I previously stated, KDOT has admitted the proposed $400 million for the westward expansion would not cover any buyout of homes, farmlands, businesses, etc. KDOT has also admitted they have no further plans past 400 Highway, making many to call the westward expansion of 69 a proposed road to nowhere. In a matter of 2 days, we had over 600 in-person signatures opposing the westward alignment and for expanding the existing 69 Highway, the middle route. meeting after meeting, numerous citizens and community members have shown up in overflowed rooms supporting what that petition stated. If you look back at meeting notes and videos, you won't be able to say the same for those in support of the westward alignment. Any project which receives any government funding, whether that funding is federal, state, county, city, etc., is our money, the taxpayers. And every elected official's responsibility at every level is to make sure the taxpayers' money is being spent wisely and responsibly. So back before you guys, someone sitting in your chair gave the approval to this. At least that's what KDOT says. They said, Frontenac, Pittsburgh, Girard, Arma, and the County Commission signed documents to give approval to the project of the westward expansion. So Frontenac, moving forward, Frontenac now has not only rescinded their approval of the western bypass, but they unanimously recommend adopting the existing middle route as the preferred 69 corridor. Following that, Girard has rescinded their approval and are in the process of following suit at their next meeting. Arma was ready to rescind at a previous meeting, but wanted to wait until all members were in attendance. And the biggest one was the Crawford County Commission took both steps in one motion, thus making the middle route the preferred route. So all that's left is you guys. If you feel strongly now, like all your neighboring cities do, that 20 years later, this isn't the best option, I encourage you to stand with your neighbors, those people whose homes will be destroyed, whose farmland will be taken, and those small business owners, mostly in your town of Pittsburgh, will suffer, and rescind your approval for the westward expansion. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
My name is Dan Muter. I live at 369 South 200th. I'm kind of an oddball as far as where I'm located. I have a Pittsburgh address. I work in Pittsburgh. We're in the Frontenac School District. We get our water and our fire care from Arma, so we get stuff from all over the place. I want to underscore what Jenna said. Our purpose tonight is to ask you to vote on the 69 bypass because you're an important, maybe the most important part of this puzzle. Not only because the existing one is right on the edge of the city of Pittsburgh, as I understand it, part Pittsburgh, part county, but you, because of the population, the number of businesses and so forth, will be most affected by this. Updating Jenna's, we stopped when we got more than 1,000 in-person petitions. You may be familiar with the Crawford County Commissioners sponsored a survey. They concluded that on Friday, June 2nd. There were 570 responses. 85% of the respondents were in favor of upgrading the existing middle alignment, 85%. 12.8% were in favor of a new western alignment, the western corridor. 12.8 is 1 out of 8. I want that to sink in. 1 out of 8 persons in our county, and about half the respondents were from the city of Pittsburgh. 1 out of 8 want a new western bypass. As she mentioned, 3 cities, Arma on the verge of doing that, and the Crawford County Commission all rescinded. Not only did they rescind, they did it unanimously. So counting Arma, which is going to do this at their next meeting, 23 men and women unanimously, not one person voted against that. All voted to rescind their approval of the western bypass, and most of them recommended the adoption of the existing corridor as the middle corridor as the new one, the place to spend money. Now, 85%. Now, if you guys, whether you're for it or against it, if you know something that we don't, we want to know that. We want to be updated. We want to know if there's something better or something out there. I think we've heard most everything, the reasons to do the west, the reasons not to, and so forth. But I think most of the objections, most of the people I've talked to come from years ago and have filtered their way down, and they came from an original group of fairly wealthy, influential, small group 20-plus years ago that for whatever reason they recommended this bypass to KDOT. They had influence and connections in order to be able to do that. Some of them, a few of them are still there and still would recommend the same thing. You've heard that. We believe that's a bad idea. We mentioned it's fiscally irresponsible. KDOT estimates this is going to be, in today's dollars, if they did it today, which isn't going to happen, it would be about $500 million or $500 million. I don't know if you know what the budget of Kansas is. Anybody know? State budget?
2.5 billion, something.
This year, it's about 20 billion. 20 billion. So $500 million is 1/40 or 2.5%. So they would be, if they built that this year, spending 2.5% of the entire state budget to build an 18-mile road that 12% of our county is in favor of. That's the bottom line. Much of the work, as we've said, has already been done. About half of the 17 miles, it's 18 miles to go around, it's 17 miles to go through these towns, these three towns. If you start at 6/7, where they have started, they've already finished 5 miles of that, and we can't figure out why they did that if they're determined to go around that. But about half of the 17 miles is already divided 4-lane highway, which would be pretty much very suitable and not need much work done. Another 8 to 9 miles would need work done, another 2 lanes added in some cases, some overpasses and so forth. But estimates from a couple of builders we've talked to that do road work, that even build overpasses, would be less than $100 million. So somewhere around maybe 20% of the cost of a completely new bypass. We mentioned it would displace also, according to KDOT, in updated figures, about 300 to 350 houses, pieces of land, and businesses. That in turn will hurt our local economy. It will hurt those businesses themselves and others. It will lead to lower property values and property taxes, especially for the county. And then it will also ensure that the city and the county would have to take care of roads and areas that the state vacates, including what we call the existing bypass. So, in summary, and that's what responded to the county survey, if 85% of the people in our county don't want a western bypass, but they want to go straight through where we're at, expand that, enlarge that, most of all, maybe make it safer than it already is. I think we all agree that's probably needed. We encourage you all, and I think the 85% of the people in the county, and especially in Pittsburgh, are encouraging you to vote to rescind the 20-plus-year-old approval of the western corridor and recommend to KDOT that we upgrade and improve our existing one. I think they want all of us to work together, and we want that. We want our 4 communities to work together. We want Arma and Frontenac and Pittsburgh and Girard and our county officials and government and all those people that live out in the country and the 69 Highway Association and KDOT to work together. We all want that. But not to build a bland bypass that misses everything. Instead, make the crowning touch of 69 Highway as it finishes its trek into southeast Kansas. Make it a beautiful, safe roadway that shows off our part of the country and the state.
Thank you.
I'm Jerry Lomschick, and I live at 304 South Chicopee Road at Chicopee. I want to thank the mayor and the council for the opportunity to speak to you this evening. I'm here to also encourage the council to rescind their support of the western alternative of the 69 bypass and support the enhancement of the existing route. I want to make the distinction between the middle alternative and the existing route. As planned, the middle alternative would include construction of approximately 5 miles of 4-lane highway from Gennardi's Corner to the north end of the current bypass. This portion would run parallel to the existing 4-lane 69 highway, just less than a half a mile to the west. Certainly an unnecessary, wasteful addition. Therefore, I recommend to you the existing route or alternative. The western alternative would entail, with the inclusion of Phase 3, the 160 highway extension through Capaldo, actually nearly 22 miles of new 4-lane construction, bypassing nearly 11 miles of current 4-lane highway, while enhancement of the existing route would require 9 miles of only 2-lane construction. Because of future planning by KDOT in the late 1950s, the right-of-way for the current bypass was obtained to accommodate a 4-lane highway, so very little additional land acquisition is needed versus virtually 22 miles of new land acquisition of 1,400 acres of land needed for the west alternative. That figure comes from KDOT's own report in 2012 as the amount of acquisition that it would take. Taking this land out of production and off the tax rolls. In addition, additional land may be needed for mitigation because of endangered species and destroyed wetlands. That's also mentioned in that report. As designed, the western route includes 7 interchange overpasses. If this number of overpasses were used on the existing route, current stoplights could be eliminated. KDOT has talked of the west route as a freeway versus an expressway. Yet 69 from Arma to Kansas City is an expressway. With a freeway, access is limited to the 7 overpass exchanges, blocking entrance to 15 county roads. Why would we do that? If the west alternative is created, the current 69 bypass, as Dan mentioned, will revert to the cities and counties for upkeep as reported by KDOT. For Pittsburgh, that represents nearly 6 miles that you will be responsible for maintenance, perhaps sharing costs with the county. KDOT stated the purpose of the west route was to increase speed of travel and safety. Regarding speed, as I reported the last time that I spoke with you, with the speed the same at either 65 or 70 miles per hour, the existing route, even with 2 miles of 45 mile per hour at Frontenac, could be traveled 2 minutes faster because of the increase of mileage in the western route. As far as safety is concerned, if overpasses that I mentioned are built on the existing route, it would be equally safe. If KDOT can build Highway 435 and 35 in Kansas City, 70 and 75 in Topeka, and 135 and 235 in Wichita, I'm sure they can address any concerns that they may have here. The existing route can be updated and expanded at far less cost to the taxpayers, and the monies saved could be used to expand 69 through Cherokee County to connect to I-44, which was originally the plan of the whole 69 corridor. The survey, as Dan mentioned, conducted by Crawford County Commission was answered by 542 county residents. 48% of those were from Pittsburgh. The results showed an overwhelming majority of 85% for expanding the existing route and abandoning the western alternative. In addition to that, you also heard that 1,000 people had signed a petition in that direction. The other towns and the county commissioners rescinded their support of the western route and supported expansion of the existing bypass. I call upon you to listen to your constituents and rescind your support of the west alternative. With the rest of the county already making the decision for the existing route, I would ask that you join the rest of the county with this project. There is enough division in this country currently. We don't need that kind of division within the county here. Let's pull together and finally move this project along. As I said before, the days of financial extravagance is quickly fading away. My only hope is that some judicious, pragmatic, common sense decision is involved here rather than bureaucratic dictate or wild expansionist dreams. I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Bert Patrick. I reside at 303 Webster here in Pittsburgh. I had a number of points I was going to present this evening, but I believe that the prior presentations have covered all of those points very well, so I think I'm just going to go to my summation. For the many reasons that others have presented this evening, and equally as important, the official votes and statements of the city commissions of Arma, Girard, and Frontenac, and the Crawford County Commission, all rescinding their earlier support of the Western Corridor. I would encourage you to do the same so that the elected representatives of the residents of all cities, indeed of the entire county, are on record in opposition to it. I believe that our unified voice will have a greater impact on those who will be making the final decision on this issue. Furthermore, I would also respectfully ask you to officially state your opposition to the KDOT proposed 2-mile, 4-lane, $13 million highway west from the intersection of Highway 69 and 590 Road. If that were built now, and $13 million are the only funds presently available, it would almost guarantee that the only eventual bypass still feasible would be the Western Corridor. Whenever, if ever, the $400 million funding for it might become available to construct it. KDOT officials have already testified that the $400 million cost to construct the Western Corridor is only for highway construction, with none of that money being available to reimburse displaced homeowners and farmers for the loss of their property and livelihoods. From my perspective, that is pie-in-the-sky planning, or as others have called it, a road to nowhere. And I encourage you to officially reject it. So I will end my comments by asking the commissioners, individually and collectively, is it your intention to officially announce your position on this matter? And if so, when can we, the residents and voters of Pittsburgh and Crawford County, anticipate that announcement?
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Carol Himmerbacher, and I live at 405 West Euclid. And, you know, I didn't even know this was coming up tonight, but I just want to say, this is a very serious thing we're talking about, because we're talking about the future for Irontown County. And economics tell me, I'm just a simple person, but it seems to me that a simpler solution would be a better solution. And so I just want to thank each one of you, because you're making decisions that are going to affect all of us. And I know you're going to make good decisions. I just believe it in my heart. Thank you.
I'm Skip Urich. You've heard quite a bit
Can we have your
tonight.
Address, please.
Pardon me?
Your address, please?
202 South College, Pittsburgh.
Thank you.
You've heard quite a bit tonight. I hope in fact, in a result of some of the recent things you've heard, is specifically maybe the county survey, maybe you're having second thoughts, but just a couple things that haven't been mentioned. The western alignment, if it's adopted, will result in bypassing 7 hotels and the casino, which are all sources of income from the city, and will result in the city having to maintain a large portion of the bypass. Visiting with Darren, he said, well, he just doesn't want the big trucks coming through Pittsburgh. And that's a nice thought, but I don't think that will happen. If you look at the situation on Highway 7 north of Girard, the big trucks will follow the shortest route, the most direct route, which will still be the current bypass. And rather than being a bypass maintained by the state of Kansas, it'll be a 2-lane bypass maintained by you and the county and the other cities along the way. Anyway, just something to think about that hasn't been brought up yet. Thank you.
Any other public input? Thank you. We'll move on to the consent agenda now, please. I'm going to read it. It's only 3 items. Approval of the May 23rd, 2023 City Commission meeting minutes. Approval of staff recommendation to utilize city funds in the amount of $27,500 for the annual 4th of July fireworks show to be provided by J&M Displays Incorporated. Approval of the appropriation ordinance for the period ending June 13th, 2023, subject to the release of HUD funds expenditures when funds are received.
Move to approve.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I'm sorry, it's a roll call vote. I always forget that.
Brooks?
Yes.
Height?
Yes.
McNay?
Yes.
Munsell?
Yes.
Sigley?
Yes. We have a special presentation now from the annual comprehensive financial report.
Mayor and Commissioners, as I'm sure you know, we get audited by our external auditor every year. Part of what we do as a public entity with public funds. Obviously, we were going through a bit of a transition during the audit this year. The finance team really came together and was able to get through the audit with what I think are flying colors. I think they did a really good job. Tonight, the lead auditor for that effort is here, Stacey Hammond, and she's going to present her results.
Thanks, Jake. Good evening, everyone. I'm Stacey Hammond, a partner with BT & Co. PA in Topeka, Kansas, and I'm here tonight to present the results of your annual financial statement audit. I believe all of you have received 2 documents from us. One of them, one very large document, is a copy of the audited financial statements, and then there's a smaller report to the City Commission. That smaller report to the City Commission puts into writing items that our audit standards require us to present, summarizing your audit. And it also forms the basis of my presentation tonight, if you'd like to open that up and go along as I get started. The first thing I need to visit with you about is our responsibilities in performing the city's financial statement audit. We did perform the audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards, government auditing standards issued by the Comptroller General of the United States, the provisions of the Single Audit Act, uniform guidance, the Office of Management and Budget Compliance Supplement, and finally the Kansas Municipal Audit and Accounting Guide. All of those standards together require us to perform procedures in order to obtain reasonable assurance that the city's financial statements are free from material misstatement. As far as the procedures that we performed, we did examine on a test basis evidence supporting the amounts and disclosures in the financial statements. We also reviewed the accounting principles that the city used and the significant estimates made by management, as well as evaluating the overall financial statement presentation. The most important thing that I'll be telling you tonight is that as a result of performing those procedures, we did determine that the financial statements of the city are presented fairly in all material respects in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. Therefore, we issued what we call an unmodified audit opinion, which is the best kind of opinion that the city can receive. Moving on to the accounting policies and practices section of the report to the City Commission. Here, we would inform you of any new accounting standards that the city might have implemented, changes in accounting principles, significant or unusual transactions, or anything related to significant estimates. There are a couple of items in that area to report this year. First, the city did implement a new accounting standard titled Governmental Accounting Standards Board Statement Number 87, Leases. That statement required the city to recognize certain lease assets, liabilities, and deferred inflows related to leases that were previously accounted for as operating leases. The second thing I need to bring to your attention is the summary on page 4 of the report to the Commission related to your significant accounting estimates. The city does have several significant accounting estimates, which are your total other post-employment benefit liability, the net pension liability, the results from the city's participation in CAPERS, as well as lease assets and liabilities related to the implementation of the new standard that I just visited with you about. Our responsibility as auditors is to make sure that management of the city has a reasonable process in place to measure and record these accounting estimates. If you look at the final column on page 4 next to each estimate, you'll see that we concluded that management does have a reasonable process in place related to each of these estimates. Moving back to page 2 and 3 of the report to the Commission, in the final sections of this report, I would bring to your attention anything bad that might have happened during the audit, if we'd had any disagreements with management, any major difficulties or consultations. I'm pleased to report that there's nothing in any of those areas that we need to report. Management of the city was extremely cooperative throughout the entire audit process, as well as being transparent in answering the numerous questions that we had. The final item that I'd like to bring to your attention is that you'll notice after page 4 in this report to the Commission, there's a 7 or 8 page document with a bunch of numbered items on it, and we call that management's representation letter. That letter really puts into writing everything that management of the city represented to us during the course of the audit, and we'd like to include it in the packet to you so that you can read that and know what the city did represent to us, and we think that it also helps you to fulfill your fiduciary responsibilities in looking at that. Before I open it up for questions, I would like to thank Jay and Allison and everyone in the city's finance department this year. This was the first go-around that they'd had in preparing for the annual financial statement audit, which isn't something that they can just get ready for rapidly. It takes hours and hours of work to get ready for us to come in and do the audit. They did a great job, and we're most appreciative of that. So I'd like to thank them and now open it up for any questions that any of you might have.
So you didn't find any processes that need to be modified going forward?
We did not. That's an excellent question. If we had had any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in internal controls, we would have been required by our audit standards to put those in this report to the City Commission. So the fact that you don't see anything there is an excellent result.
Thank you.
How long does it take to do an audit?
We look at audits in terms of number of hours, and for us to perform the City of Pittsburgh's financial statement audit, it really takes us about 500 hours is what we budget to perform this audit.
A lot of work. Good work. Thank you.
I had a question about an item that's at the back of the report, and I don't know if that's maybe for the city employees. The $52,000 that's price testing variance. Allison, would you want to? I just wonder what that was, if you could explain that.
Yeah. Sorry. The 52,000 was an inventory price variance where our inventory was undervalued by 52,000, so they just made that adjustment, since our inventory was undervalued.
So just a estimate? Not-
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you just, it was too low?
Our inventory was recorded too low, so it's an asset price variance, so, we needed to record our assets more than they were recorded on our books currently.
Okay, I just noticed it broken out, so I just wanted to ask that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Anyone? Nope. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just want to make sure we recognize Stacy's group who does our audit. Usually, every year she has new team members, as we all do with any of our departments, but she's a champion, she's a stellar, she comes in, she makes sure, she asks all the questions that you could easily just glaze over, because she isn't here a lot, and she's familiar with this, but she doesn't leave any rock unturned, and that makes us better. And I do want to acknowledge, Jay assumed the positions of finance director in the middle of December, which was an interesting time for us to change finance directors and at the end of the year. And our biggest concern for about 4 months was this audit and making sure that it was clean and we closed the year correctly. And so I do want to acknowledge his efforts and the entire finance team who really stepped up and didn't complain and just took on some new responsibilities. And our goal every year is to get an unqualified audit like this. And I just want to make sure that you understand that the 500 hours is not an easy 500 hours, and that Jay's leadership is probably one of the main reasons that we were able to be successful. So thank you, and thanks, Stacy, for all you do.
Thank you.
I would like to thank Jay also. I come and go out of the building quite often, and he's always in his little cubbyhole looking at things. And he's kept the oars in the water for us during this transitional period for quite some time. And we certainly thank you. And Allison, welcome on board, and thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to considerations. Resolution number 1269, consider approval of resolution number 1269, determining the advisability of issuing taxable industrial revenue bonds for the purpose of financing the construction of additions to a commercial facility located in the city and authorizing execution of related documents. Approval or disapproval, resolution number 1269.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of the commission, I bring to you a recommendation from the Economic Development Advisory Committee to support a planned $7 million expansion at Heritage Tractor, which you'll recall about a month ago requested to be annexed into the city of Pittsburgh. That $7 million expansion, they ask for the city's assistance with that, not in terms of dollars necessarily from the revolving loan fund, which is more often than not the recommendations that we bring you, but the city's approval of an industrial revenue bond, which would provide sales tax exemption on the construction materials for Heritage Tractor, and would also open the door for your consideration of a property tax exemption request that will come in a later time after Heritage Tractor has had an opportunity to get cost-benefit analysis, to work with Tammy's office on the proper public notices. But the resolution that you have before you tonight is to basically approve the industrial revenue bond that would allow them to go ahead and have the sales tax exemption on the construction materials. They're ready to go with that. Their IRB counsel is Garth Herman, who you're very familiar with. He's presented to you many times. He's here to answer any questions that you may have on how industrial revenue bonds work. But with that, we would bring that recommendation from the EDAC to you tonight.
Before you
Yes,
go
sir,
there,
Commissioner.
Blake, we do have maybe a typo. It's
No,
7.5
it's-
million.
It's, Blake's just, as of today, we got a call that it was 7.5, so I don't think Blake has seen that.
Oh,
The
yeah.
one in front of you is 7.5 million.
Okay.
But,
Just, yeah, thank you for
catch.
the clarification, yeah. Yeah, just in case those construction costs go a little bit more than they anticipated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Move to approve if there's no questions.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 1269. All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by the same sign, and approved. Item B is A&R Rentals. Consider the recommendation of the Economic Development Advisory Committee to reimburse Alicia and Rusty Olson, owners of A&R Rentals, for infrastructure improvements to the property located at 610 North Broadway in an amount equal to 10% of the total project cost with the city's portion not to exceed $16,950.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This was another project that came before the EDAC last week. Alicia and Rusty Olson, who are the owners of A&R Rentals, they're here with us tonight, are proposing a significant renovation of the property currently at 610 North Broadway. Our residents probably most often identify that as the Ray's Office World location downtown. I've got some pictures here that are supplied by the Olsons, but I'll ask one or both of them to go ahead and come on up, and they'll tell you a little bit more about the project, and then I'll come back and talk about the recommendation from the EDAC. So, thank you, Alicia. Rusty, you could just turn your pictures by the right arrow key there.
My name is Rusty Olson, with my wife Alicia Olson, of course. You've already kind of covered most of our introduction. This is the building, and this is kind of what we started with. We purchased the building back in February, and we kind of just went through the initial process of cleaning it out.
Can you do this one right here?
I tried that one first. See, I'm telling you.
Okay.
I didn't know. Yeah.
Technical difficulties.
Yeah, let's just reopen it again. Okay, there you go.
Okay, so this is just kind of what we started with. We're still midway through the process, so you won't get to see any finished results yet, but I can kind of brief over some of the numbers that we're incurring and expecting to incur. So this is just kind of what we started with. As you'll go through, we just started with cleaning all of this out and kind of getting started. This is a rendering we kind of came up with is like the initial plan. The front portion of this building will have, the hopes by the end of this, we'll have 14-foot tall ceilings, some of the old, the historic metal ceilings up there. We would love to expose that, but for the majority of this office portion of the building, we do plan on doing what we've already done, drop ceiling, R30 insulation. We're trying to make this so we're not spending, enormous amounts of heating and cooling bills. We've done new HVAC systems and all of that. This is just some of the metal work that's above what was already there, and it's already existing, but of course we've got to go through the process of restoring it. There's some, interesting old glass up front. We'd love to reveal all of that, so when you walk in, this would kind of be what would be revealed at the entrance of the building. So our thought will be kind of like a older waiting room, kind of, historic and brought back to life. And then this is just going to be the actual office space, of course with ceiling tiles and everything else completed.
So it'll have 3 offices and then like a storage room and then 2 bathrooms, one being ADA compliant as well.
Yeah, so this photo is really just for the office portion of the building. This is about 1,600 to 1,700 square feet of space. There's still an additional 2,000 square foot of warehouse immediately behind this that could be used for future expansion. There's garage space out back, about 600, 700 square foot there. There is a basement to the building. There's an overhead loft to the building. All of that would be for kind of future expansion. But the initial plan, the initial goal is to have this portion.
This portion in the main level.
Yeah.
Functional.
And of course, to get a lot of the mechanicals taken care of. The roof portion of it was $32,000. HVAC, we're expecting about $12,000. We've had sewer line repairs of about $1,600. We've had plumbing at about $5,000, electrical about $5,000. We have about $20,000 materials. Labor, we're expecting around $29,400, but that's probably a low estimate by the way things are progressing. But yeah, that's the current plan.
So
And that's
is
kind of where we
all
stand.
the space for your business, or will you be?
It'll be all for A&R Rentals, yeah.
At the moment.
We have 6 employees currently.
Oh,
so.
wow, okay. Great.
Thank you.
And obviously, Mr. Mayor, we appreciate the Olsons and all of the property owners that have really invested so much in our downtown over the last several years. It's making a big difference. So as the agenda item, Mr. Mayor, mentions, the total anticipated cost of this project is approximately $169,500. So the recommendation from the EDAC is that at the end of the project, that the Olsons would be eligible to have 10% of the project cost reimbursed back to them in an amount not to exceed $16,950. And as we do with all of the city's participation with these projects, the funds are earmarked specifically for infrastructure improvements. So with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I have no question. If there's none, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we make a motion to approve the recommendation. All in favor, saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Leafy Green Farms, you want to tell us what's going on there?
Yes, sir, they have asked that we pull that item off the agenda tonight.
Okay, we'll still have to go through a vote to approve or disapprove at the present time because
Okay,
it's
I
on the
understand.
agenda.
We'd vote to table.
We vote to table.
So I move to table.
Move to table.
Second it.
Been moved and seconded that we table this action. All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Point Forward, consider the recommendation of the Economic Development Advisory Committee to support the Point Forward Washington School Child Care Facility Project located at 205 South Locust in an amount equal to 10% of the total project cost, with the city's portion not to exceed $507,000.
All right. Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. As you can tell, it was a busy EDAC meeting last week. This is an exciting project to bring to you, and I'm going to turn it over to Ron Skripsik here in just a moment, who's the chairman of the board for Point Forward. But this is a proposed project that is not new to you. It's a renovation of the former Washington School property at 205 South Locust Street. Obviously, you're all aware of the need for increased child care capacity in our community that's come up several times through Imagine Pittsburgh conversations and conversations in front of you. This is a proposed $5.7 million project, so it has a lot of different moving parts. So they did make a request to the EDAC for consideration last week, and I'll talk about that recommendation in just a moment, but I'll ask Ron to go ahead and come up and talk a little bit about the renovation project itself.
Good evening, Ron Skripsik, 911 Tanglewoods Lane here in Pittsburgh, Kansas. I've been appointed to chair the Point Forward nonprofit organization that we're representing for this school. Engineer drawings are finished for the building right now. All of the architectural drawings, core drilling's been done on the property, EPA. The drawings have been turned over to KDHE right now and also to the fire marshal, so we can begin construction here within about 30, 45 days. To date, we've raised approximately $4 million of the 5.7. If this request is approved, that'll get us within about 1.2 million of the total cost of the project. So I'm here to answer any questions you might have. Okay, I don't know. I think you guys have seen the artist renditions of what the building's gonna look like.
Just in case some of the folks at home maybe have
All right,
not.
back up one.
Okay.
So this right here is the layout of the property. Due to the recommendation from the city, we've got expanded parking lot and also wider alleyways. We're gonna have 3 entrances to the facility. One entrance on the east is gonna be primarily dedicated to the employees. The alleyway be one way from Rose Street to Euclid, 3 lanes. Another, due to the recommendation of the city, that's gonna be improved safety standards for people bringing in, dropping off, and picking up. So safety is a big concern of ours. We'll make sure the kids that are here are well taken care of. So that's the property layout. We've got 2 different playgrounds, one for the older children and one for the really young ones. This is an artist rendition of what the complex is gonna look like. The new buildings on the left, the existing buildings on the right, will be approximately 20,000 square feet total when we get done with it. From the Locust side, this is the renditions of it. Again, from the Locust side. And the back of the building where the alleyway is here, we've got a covered canopy going between the 2 buildings, so during inclement weather, they can drop them off and kids can stay dry and parents can be dry when they're picking them up. And that's the actual floor plans of the facility.
Ron, is this money to be used for infrastructure, like you're talking about parking lot, sewer lines, water lines, so forth?
The money that we're asking for the city is strictly for infrastructure. Yes, it's going to be a parking lot, the curb, gutters, and sidewalks. We're going to have sidewalks going all the way around on 3 different sides of the property. That's over and above what's really necessary, but again, due to the recommendation of the city, We all know that we need sidewalks more and more, throughout the town. And as Locust is expanded and developed, we want to make sure that we've got a really nice sidewalk in front on Locust and also Rose and Euclid.
So my understanding how this works, when you make certain improvements for this money, then you can draw whatever the cost is.
Yes.
So once you complete the parking lot, whatever that is, you can draw from this 500,000 or the sewer line, whatever it is.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Commissioner. Chances are during the fiscal year of 2023, it'll be somewhat minimal. We will go into the vacant lot where the playground's at right now, where the new parking lot's gonna go. We're gonna clear off all of the topsoil. None of that money is included in this, but we will want to put down a really good base rock for the parking lot going forward. And then we're gonna use that property as our staging area for materials, since it's already got a fence around it, for the staging of the renovation and construction.
Well, Ron, I think this is a great project. We do need daycare. That is something we've needed for a long time.
And it's getting
And I
worse.
asked you at the last meeting, how close are you to coming to have somebody who's gonna operate your daycare?
Our primary concern right now is to really create a really nice facility.
Right.
Commissioner, it really is. We're still talking to the 4 primary ones that we talked to you about before. There's a couple others that are starting to show some interest. I truly believe that once the construction begins, there's probably gonna be more coming up. So we're not in any big hurry. We definitely will have an operator in place before the project is complete, but we don't have a sense of urgency at this given point in time.
I understand.
We've got other
I understand.
bridges we've got to cross
All
first.
right, good deal.
Ron, on this slide that you got up here, total capacity 256 children. Is that what your hope is?
Well,
Capacity.
it's minimum. The auditorium there could be, we could apply, or actually the operator could apply to the state. That's not gonna be for us. And Don's pretty much aware of this, that you could actually make application for more than 256 and use the auditorium as a potential classrooms or whatever when the weather's not inclement, so. 256, at the end of the day, is the minimum.
So is the auditorium, and I don't want to get the cart before the horse, but the auditorium, is it FEMA, like a FEMA storm shelter or something, since it's
No,
interior?
no.
Are you going to have any type of a storm shelter there?
There is a basement in there. We're still evaluating. That's been a wet basement since 1935, since it's built. We're negotiating, considering, but why change something that's 100 years old and
Right.
redirect it somewhere else?
Right. Well, it's a phenomenal drawing and plan, so
It really is.
looks good.
I have a question.
Sure.
So I think, not necessarily for you, Ron, but I think we've always heard that EDAC money is the last money. So is there a process to draw as infrastructure pieces get done, or is it at the end? Like,
This one, excuse me, Ron.
Sure.
This one is a little bit different because with some of our smaller projects that we bring to you, typically it's at the end of the project and then they show a verification of funds spent and then they get a check from the city. This one would be a little bit different because it is such a big project that as pieces are completed, as Commissioner Munsell said, basically as projects and infrastructure pieces are completed, they would submit that to the city. Sometimes we pay the vendor directly. I think that's often the preference of the city. Or if Point Forward were to pay that expense, then they would need to provide verification that they did pay the vendor, and then they would be reimbursed. But this will be a little bit different in that that money will be expended throughout the life of the project instead of holding it until the end of it.
so do we have anywhere in the documents that specifies exactly what is covered by the EDAC money?
Typically, infrastructure, and
But it is
as would be with this one as well.
Okay, but I don't see any of that in the application, or what, I guess this is a question I should have asked years ago. What kind of documentation do we require once we approve this between the business and the city?
I think this
We-
right here is really what the EDAC approved right here. Is that
Yeah,
not correct?
yeah, I'll get this to you. This. The specific items and estimated cost there, Commissioner, those would be the infrastructure-related items that the city's money would go toward.
Okay, so this needs to be attached to the application. Okay.
And
And that dollar amount's 461,000, and the EDAC approved the 507,000 just based upon potential price increases or whatever. And that, the total amount is still less than 10% of the total project.
Am my understanding, Ron, if things were to go lower than this estimate,
Yeah, it's gonna be
that
based,
money would come back, whatever's left
yeah,
over?
it's gonna be based upon actual expense.
Right.
Yes, right.
Will there be a draw procedure?
Yes,
Is
sir.
that the, okay,
Yes.
that's,
That's how that would work.
And that's the reason I said the bulk of it will probably be 2024. There'll be a little bit of rock and stuff, but, you know, we're not gonna put the sidewalks and asphalt the alleyway until construction's done.
okay, thank you very much.
And I believe, one last point, I believe Point Forward has bids out and anticipate getting the final bids back the first week of July. And so the EDAC language also recommended just city staff verifying that if for some reason the total cost were to come in lower than they're anticipating, just making sure that the city's funds doesn't exceed that 10%. But it's not often that construction costs come in less than you think, so that won't be an issue. But that is something that we'll verify before it's finalized.
And we did, to that point, we had a pre-bid meeting last Friday, and 20 local contractors and vendors showed up for that meeting, which we were well pleased to see.
Great.
Thanks, Ron.
Okay, item E, Pittsburgh State University, Kels College of Business Economic
vote on this,
Research.
hold
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, I thought we'd, getting ahead of things. Okay, we need to approve or disapprove the recommendation.
Move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the recommendation. All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by the same sign. So it passes. Now, back to E. Pittsburgh State University, Kels College of Business Economic Research proposal. Consider the recommendation of the Economic Development Advisory Committee to support the Pittsburgh State University, Kels College of Business Economic Research proposal at an investment level of $32,500 to fund the project for 1 year.
Me one last time, I promise. So, Mr. Mayor, members of the commission, this is a partnership that the city has had with the Kels College of Business at Pittsburgh State since 2014. They've got an incredible economic researcher, Dr. Michael Davidson, who has reported to you. What he does thanks to this partnership is quarterly he creates an economic report that just focuses on our local economy. He does all of the research, produces all of the data. Pittsburgh State lays out this document. They print it, and most importantly, thanks to the support of the city, every single business in Pittsburgh receives a copy of this in the mail. So it's not only great marketing for us when we're looking at new economic development projects, but it's important for your existing businesses to know the health of their local economy. So the agreement with Pittsburgh State that we bring to you for consideration tonight, and this was recommended by the EDAC last week, was for $32,500, and what that gets the city is 4 issues of the quarterly report plus an annual report. Again, every business in Pittsburgh receives one of these, and I will say that throughout the year, we commonly reach out to Dr. Davidson, especially if there's an economic development questionnaire where they ask some questions looking for data that we're not sure exactly where to find it. We reach out to Dr. Davidson. He's always very happy to jump in and help us with those projects, so there's actually even more value than just these publications. But it's been a great partnership, and the EDAC recommended to the commission that we continue this for another year.
I'll make a motion to approve, there's no questions?
Second.
Been moved and seconded.
Mayor, I'd like to just abstain from this vote to avoid any conflict.
Okay, thank you very much. Been moved and approved. It's been moved and seconded to approve the recommendation. All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by the same sign.
Thank you.
Non-agenda reports and requests.
I think we're good. We're good.
I am going to just say a few things. The people who came forward early made some some valid points. And I think the commission needs to think about this and come back in a couple of weeks and talk about it. In the meantime, get the public's opinion for ourselves. I've heard some, and I'm sure everybody here has. And then come back and probably go into an executive session and discuss this.
From my opinion, I think we've heard quite a bit of information, and I'm ready to take some action on this tonight. And by doing so, I'd like to make a motion to rescind the 2001 resolution that was in support of the Western Route.
I have some thoughts on a document that I looked at from the county's website. It's from the environmental assessment document that they posted. I think it was from 2012. There were public meetings back then. I think Memorial Auditorium was one. And I was just going through it on page 5. Safety, of course, caught my eye based on my profession. The one thing that concerned me about the existing bypass that it struck me as remarkable. There are 21 public streets in the existing section, 152 private drives, arterials or highways 17, and 1 railroad crossing. So I still would hope that KDOT makes whatever decision that they are going to make based on safety and efficiency of the highway. And I know that this affects a lot of people on the west bypass. I'm personally not, I don't think there's enough information from my aspect to make a decision one way or another. So those are my thoughts. And I do think that, I know that there's been a lot of contact, a lot of people going to public meetings and things. But again, it's not up to, in my opinion, it's not up to the county commission, any of the local city commissions. I mean, sure, we can have an opinion, but I don't know that KDOT's asking us to support it or refute it. So I think, personally, I would like to see what KDOT has to say. Obviously, the environmental assessment has been done on this existing, so, and, there's also the next table on there are fatality accidents and injury accidents. And I can speak from personal experience from losing 2 different family members years apart on 69 highway, one of which, the most recent, was a rear end collision at a turning left on south of 69. So I do respect everybody's opinion, and I know property owners want to protect their property, but I also think that it's more than just that, and I hope that KDOT put more effort into this, and I know that they did. And I know it's a big number, and I understand financials, but yes, it's taxpayer money. It's the state's decision to do what they want to do with it. It doesn't come out of the city's budget, and I think it's sort of outside of our area of expertise on what to tell KDOT they should do one way or another. So again, I mentioned at the last meeting at the public forum, or maybe 2 meetings ago, that I still think we need to, and we will all benefit in this area from whatever project that they do for 69 highway. And again, I would defer to the experts on that, regardless of, how popular or unpopular that decision may be. So my thoughts.
I would tend to agree with Stu. Me personally, I don't have enough information from KDOT or anyone on the actual impact to our local economy for the middle route. I mean, if you're talking a freeway down the middle route, that's a significant negative impact during the construction phase. And I think KDOT is committed to having some sessions in September, October. For me personally, it's very premature to rescind or recommend or anything. I would like more information on the impact to Pittsburgh citizens. And the county is 40,000. So 1,800 people, that's great. But the county is 40,000 people, so.
Well, I'd like to second Chuck's motion. Based on Jeremy Johnson's June 16th Crawford County meeting, where he reported to the commission at that time, there was a guy by the name of George Dockery from KDOT that stated that the current bypass is 2 lanes, but the right-of-way does allow for expansion to 4 lanes. So theoretically, we could expand the existing bypass into something like Frontenac and the rest of 69. But no one has a crystal ball about any of this. What was good 22 years ago doesn't go with what's going on today. It's a different world we live in today. Yes, safety is a very big factor, and Stu, I'm sorry that you lost 2 family members on 69, but we have to look at the big picture. We all have to work together with all these towns, Frontenac, Girard, Crawford County, Arma. They all worked as a cohesive unit 22 years ago and signed resolutions. They all worked together. They were on the same page. Why can't we all be that way today? We need to get back to that. We need to sit down at the table with all these elected officials and do what's best for Crawford County.
Well, I agree with that, but we've not done that, and everybody started rescinding. We didn't all sit down.
We need to not let this die. We need to have a sit down with all these elected officials and see what we all have to say that makes it the best for all of us.
With KDOT, so we have.
Yes, KDOT.
Yeah.
That's why I brought this motion to rescind this, because if you remember the meeting we had prior, there was a lot of people that came up and made very good points. And there was one lady in particular made a very good point that we need to study. Had there been a study done by KDOT on the cost and safety of expanding our existing bypass? And, you know, I want to personally thank everyone that was on Highway 69 in the years past, all the commissioners in each city and county that are approved this resolution on the western route. There was a lot of hard work that these people did to bring a 4-lane down to Pittsburgh from Kansas City, and we all benefit from that. But like Cheryl said, things have changed over a 20-year period. I do expect and I would request that the county, I think, has planned on asking the acting Secretary of Transportation to come down. I would like to see them come down and meet with the commissioners in each city and explain the route. But a lady, Jenna, I think her name was, she brought up, and Cheryl's got information also on this meeting, that Commissioner Johnson did a good job. He attended this phone call, and then he came and explained to the county commissioners what KDOT's intention was. And something that jumps out at me right here is KDOT, Mr. Johnson stated, KDOT indicated they would not fund the entire Highway 69 bypass for over $300 million. That was in 2020. This is 2023, and that figure has went up to $400 million. So if they're not going, that's what they need to come down and explain. If they're not going to fully fund $300 million, I take it they might not fully fund $400 million. So where does that money come from? The taxpayers. How do we come up with that? I don't know. But, these are all valid questions, and I thank all my commissioners for their input. But that's why I made this motion, try to get KDOT down here and have a sit down. And like Cheryl said, we all, the county, Frontenac, Girard, Pittsburgh, and Arma, all need to work together on what's best, the less amount to the taxpayers, and a safe, efficient expansion, of our current bypass. And that's why I made a motion.
Well, Chuck, I agree with you, but wouldn't, you're asking for a meeting for us all to come together and listen to KDOT, and the original resolution was passed 20-some years ago. They had all that information in front of them at that point. I just feel like we don't have that luxury right now. We're trying to circumnavigate what was done 22 years ago without the benefit of the same information or recent information, modern information. So
We have to start somewhere, though. We have to.
If we rescind now, then there's no reason for KDOT to come down and do any more explanation. They already know what our feelings are and what the other cities around us feel. There's no reason to come down.
If you don't want it to die, you have to keep hammering away. You have to get people together, so.
Well, I don't think rescinding or not rescinding is a barrier to that. I mean, it's, on a certain amount of the population, it's top of mind. They said they were coming back in September anyway, so.
I thought it was to Iowa.
Yeah, to Iola.
Iola's a meeting, and they're gonna talk about projects throughout the state, I take it. I think that, can we not get them to come down with issues in Crawford County?
It's not, it wouldn't just be us, it would be all of the entities.
And
That's fine.
I wanna bring up another point here, that, Doc, you said there's no reason for them to come down, but in 2020, when they said they would not fully fund the 300 million, their recommendation was to help improve some of the current bypass. So I'm sure they still have to come down and discuss the recommendations, with what we want, sounds like with what a lot of people want, to see with the current bypass. So I just made the motion to kind of start the ball back. And I understand what you're saying, Stu, something that was made 20 years ago, we didn't have that information. We don't have that information now. Who knows who has that? But I know what we're doing right now and what we vote on today. I don't think 20 years from now, it should be what we live by 20 years from now. So,
I haven't even had a chance to read all the environmental assessment that the county posted, so, I mean, it's really, it looked to be a pretty good document, it's in a PDF form, and you just go to their website and look at it. Lots of tables with information and a lot of different categories in there that would answer maybe some of the questions, and like I said, that was from 2012, and so it's not even up to date. There's, that data's probably changed one way or the other on the accidents and people affected.
I think it'd be helpful, it's a great discussion. 2020, I mean, we're talking 22 years ago. I'm assuming, I wasn't here, I don't know who was on that group, but I'm assuming they made, if you got all the counties and all the cities together and they came up with a unified recommendation, they had to have a ton of information that they all went over and had all their questions answered. I mean, I'm the city manager of Pittsburgh. I've never seen a layout for the current bypass. Every time I go anywhere, somebody grabs me and says, hey, we need to be on the western one or this one. And I know the western one has a plan that's on a piece of paper, but I don't know. I can't answer the questions about when is it on the east side? When is it going to be expanded on the west side? Where is it going to cross over? What would it be like? I mean, I've got a wastewater treatment plant. We've got a J.C.'s ballpark. You can bet if J.C.'s ballpark is going to be wiped out by a new bypass, we're going to have this room full of people talking about how that's not a good idea. But I don't have any answers for that. So I think it's a good suggestion. If they're going to do it in September in Iola, wherever, I think before you would make any decision, you would want to be completely informed about what are the two things that you're talking about before you take one off the table. So I definitely think KDOT made it very clear when they came down the other day that they were on a listening tour. I know they're in an interim director or trying to get a permanent director, but nothing's moving that fast on this highway. Although somebody did bring up the $15 million east-west piece up at Capalda, and I don't, that's not in Pittsburgh, so I understand. But with regards to safety, a lot of people have made broad statements about what's safe, what's not safe. Can anybody in this room tell me where they're planning on putting this expanded bypass so we can please tell the people that are going to be impacted and give them a chance to come in here and say, no, I don't want my house gone. I don't want that intersection removed, because that's what's going on with the western bypass, and God bless them all. They have a legitimate concern. I totally get all that, but we don't have enough information to pick one or the other. It just feels like to me, and I think it's KDOT's job maybe to come down and enlighten us on where that would go if it was going to go on the existing bypass. But just that it's going to happen and there's enough right-of-way, that's pretty vague for us to make a decision of, well, let's make a statement of one over the other. And I think when I talked to Commissioner Brooks earlier this week, her biggest concern was, it feels like there's more work that needs to be done on educating and getting to how can we get to that unified decision we were at 22 years ago? And I think part of the problem with getting there right now is I haven't seen any plans on some of this stuff. So it seems like conjecture a little bit, and I would just recommend whatever decision you make today, I think we need to make a clear statement back to KDOT before anything else that we may not have enough information to even make a good decision right now, but we need to go through that process.
If these cities are divided, we're not going to get anywhere. We're spinning our wheels. nothing's gonna happen.
But you can't come together and make a decision if you don't have all the information, and we don't have all the information. And the other communities chose to make that decision
Without the
without the
information.
information. So, it does, none of this
Well, we
precludes-
don't know that they didn't have it, they made an educated decision
Right.
based on,
what they know.
yes.
Which is what we
and
know.
For their city.
Right.
Well, that's why like I said, it was brought up in our prior meeting that a study needs to be done. I don't know what information study there was years ago, probably not relevant and current to things that's changed over 20 years. So, KDOT needs to study what the majority of the people want and go from there.
But we don't really know what the majority of the people want.
I'm just going by what I've heard, what the county did a survey. So I know, just like anything, Dawn, when you have an election or a survey,
You get a percentage.
yeah,
Yeah.
people don't come out and do
Right.
it. But we go by what the certain number of people want. And, unfortunately, people don't vote, people don't be part of the survey. But, I guess there's a motion and a second,
Second,
so
yeah.
I would call for a question. So,
But this isn't a point.
yeah,
Yeah.
we can talk later, Bert, but not right now, so I'll call for the question, Doc.
All in favor of the motion?
Would you read it again, please, after all that? Would you read your motion again?
Well, I don't know if I need to read it, but
Oh, or,
I just made a motion to rescind the resolution that was made 20-plus years ago, supporting the western route. I think I've had enough, probably not had enough information. That's why we need KDOT to come down and explain what everybody wants, the existing bypass, how we can make that safer. So that's my motion to rescind that resolution 20 years ago.
All in favor?
can we have a roll call on that?
Brooks?
I'm in favor
Of rescinding,
of rescinding.
all right.
Height, I'm not in favor at this time.
McNeil?
No.
Munsell?
Yes.
Sigley?
No. I feel that we need more information, and I think we should make an effort to get in touch with KDOT and get them down here and talk, or talk there, and get more information before we decide to do this. Everybody assumes that the existing road bypass that we have won't be affected. Believe me, it will be torn out totally and renewed, as will the new one on the other side, just like they've done all the way to Kansas City with the road systems, even though a bunch of them were concrete. So there's a lot more involved here. And if they're telling you that they can do this for $100 million, they're full of baloney right up front. Because, there are people's homes who are gonna come out also. And we need to know that information. We need to know how much destruction is gonna happen to those people along the route. If we go that way, we know pretty much what's gonna happen on the other side, on the western side, but we need to know the information that's affecting the citizens of Pittsburgh, because that's who we represent. The county represents their citizens, the whole. We represent the city of Pittsburgh, and I need more information before I'm gonna vote.
I think that's all, what we all asked for, Doc. None of us.
But we don't have all that information. We don't know what their plans are if they go down the present bypass, do we? We don't know how many homes are gonna come out. We don't know how wide they're going to go, what they're going to do to the infrastructure that's already there.
That's why they do a study, to give us that information.
But on the bypass, on the present bypass?
Yeah.
Okay,
That's what we need. Yeah.
that's what we need.
What's your mayor minute?
What?
Was that your mayor minute?
No.
Okay.
A couple of things. Neighborhood action committees, I'd like to ask the neighborhoods if they could put together in the 4 quadrants, neighborhood action committees, so we can continue with our cleanup of Pittsburgh or spruce up Pittsburgh over the next few months as we go through the summer and into the fall. And number 2, if you haven't, and I think you should visit the Abbey or / mausoleum at the cemetery, the city cemetery, and see what's happened to that. It's gone from virtual total decay to absolutely fantastic. So I would recommend the citizens, if they get a chance, to go visit that abbey and see what all the work that's been done out there.
The only problem is, if you want to go on the inside, you have to have a family member that's in the abbey because it's locked. So anyone that wants to tour it would have to get with whoever.
The city.
The city.
Take a tour of it.
Open house.
Or if the groups want to put a tour together, they can do that.
Yeah, absolutely. As with regards to the first action item, we'll have an ordinance. It's on my desk. Henry hasn't reviewed it. But it would set up a neighborhood action committee, which would have representatives from the city and the four quadrants, and they could get together and meet regularly and see about taking the momentum from Spruce Up Pittsburgh this year that's already been created and push it down into the neighborhoods, which is really where we want it if it's going to be sustainable. So we should have something hopefully by the next meeting for you all to consider.
Any other business? Seeing none, call for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to adjourn the meeting. So done. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I wasted a page on 2 lines.
Good job.